Hey, welcome to The Explainer. So today, we're going to connect the dots on something you've probably been noticing. There are these huge military tensions escalating halfway across the world, but somehow it's hitting you right here, at home. We're talking about the price you're paying at the pump. We're going to break down exactly why a conflict thousands of miles away is making a direct hit on your wallet.
Yeah, I bet you've been seeing numbers just like this one popping up at your local gas station, right? $4.11. Ouch. And that's not just a one-off. That's the national average for a gallon of regular gas. And the scary part? The trend is pointing straight up. So what's really driving these prices up? I mean, what is going on here? Well, it's a lot more complicated than just supply and demand. The real story actually starts in one of the most critical and, honestly, most contested waterways on the entire planet. It's a place that's become the absolute center of a super tense international standoff.
Okay, let's talk about the global choke point. To really get why this matters so much to your bank account, we've got to look at a map. We're talking about this tiny, narrow strip of water, but it holds a crazy amount of power over the entire world's economy.
So, this right here is the Strait of Hormuz. It is, and this is no exaggeration, the world's single most important choke point for oil. Just think of it like a global superhighway, but exclusively for giant oil tankers. And because of where it is, it gives the countries right there on its border, especially Iran, a huge amount of geopolitical power. And this really puts it all into perspective. Look at that, a full 20%. That's 1/5 of all the oil traded on the entire planet squeezes through this one tiny channel. So you can imagine, when Iran decides to block it off, which they've been doing, it's not just a little shipping problem. No, it sends immediate, massive shockwaves through the global energy market. And that's when you see prices everywhere just jump. Okay, so now we're at rescues, threats, and retaliation. Because with that choke point blocked, this thing has blown way past just being about money. We're talking direct military action, we're talking incredible rescue missions, and a war of words that has pretty much the entire world holding its breath. I mean, things have been moving at lightning speed. Just look at this. On Friday, a U.S. F-15 gets shot down over western Iran. The very next day, Saturday, U.S. Special Forces pull off what the president is calling one of the most daring rescues in U.S. history. They literally went deep into mountainous territory to get a badly wounded airman out. And all of this leads to a pretty stark ultimatum that was issued for this coming Tuesday.
And the president did not mince words. In a bunch of social media posts, he threatened, and I'm quoting here, that, quote, Tuesday will be power plant day and bridge day, all wrapped up in one in Iran, telling them to, quote, open the effing strait or you'll be living in hell. He's talking about targeting critical civilian infrastructure. And, that kind of talk immediately raised red flags for international law experts, who pointed out that targeting civilian sites could be a serious violation of the laws of war.
Well, as you can imagine, Iran's response was just as intense. Major General Ali Abdullahi shot right back, saying, if the U.S. attacks Iranian infrastructure, the gates of hell will open for you. He called the president's threat a desperate, nervous, unbalanced, and foolish move, and basically promised a really devastating retaliation if the U.S. follows through.
So now the world watches warily. With these kinds of threats flying back and forth, the rest of the world is understandably getting really alarmed. Everyone is calling for diplomacy, because this is way bigger than just a fight between two countries. This thing has global implications. And it's not just politicians. On Easter Sunday, from St. Peter's Square, Pope Leo made a really direct plea. He said, let those who have weapons lay them down. Let those who have the power to unleash wars choose peace. Not a peace imposed by force, but through dialogue. It was a pretty powerful moral voice joining the chorus of people just begging for restraint.
All of this puts the NATO alliance in a really, really tough spot. You've got President Trump demanding their military help to go in and reopen the strait, but a lot of the European allies are saying, whoa, hold on, because they're terrified of getting dragged into a bigger war. It's a huge strategic dilemma for the entire alliance. They're really caught in the middle here.
Which brings us to the next big piece of this puzzle, debating the trillion-dollar cost. Let's bring this all the way back home now to Washington, D.C., because this conflict has kicked off a huge, fierce debate. And it's not just about foreign policy. It's about our national priorities and, you guessed it, how our tax money is being spent. Get ready for this number. The White House has sent a request to Congress for $1.5 trillion. That's trillion with a T.
It's for the Department of Defense budget, and yep, a big chunk of that massive number is to fund the ongoing operations we're seeing in Iran. And just so we're all clear, this isn't some tiny little budget increase. No way. This request is a 44% jump, a 44% increase over what the Department of Defense got this year. That's a staggering shift in how the government is spending money. So let's actually break down that huge number. You've got the total $1.5 trillion request for the Pentagon. Inside that, there's a $400 billion piece specifically for the war. But wait, there's more. On top of all that, there's a separate $200 billion emergency request. We are literally talking about hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars just for this one conflict. And, as you can probably guess, this has sparked some major opposition. Democrats are framing this whole debate around something called opportunity cost. They're essentially asking, what else could we do with all that money? They're pointing out that the $400 billion for the war could, for example, pay for massive domestic programs. We're talking things like universal childcare, or making public college free, or even making sure every teacher in the country earns at least $60,000 a year. And really, that brings us to the big fundamental question at the end of all this. When a global conflict makes the price of gas shoot up, who's supposed to pay for our security? Is it you, the citizen, every time you fill up your tank? Or is it the nation as a whole through its budget? This whole situation really forces us to think about how the massive costs of foreign policy get spread around and what we as a country really value the most.